I've been involved with the Venture Navigator project for a very long time. And like Neil, I don't think I would have ever expected it to have ended up where it has ended up, and I'm very pleased that it has. And what they've asked me to talk about this morning, just for a few seconds, is a bit about need and demand rather than capacity and supply, meaning what is there out there in local business communities that I've experienced that causes me to think that there are reasons for us to be here today. To the degree I have any experience that's relevant, given the fact that I have a notably non-local accent. By the way, this is my Cambridgeshire accent. I've been working on it for 9 years now. So, what do you think? I've spent the last 2 years in particular running a social enterprise called School for Startups, where I've been trying to teach small businesses how to basically do a better job, grow faster, grow better, or people who aren't entrepreneurs yet, what it takes to start. And I have been all over the UK. And I spend a lot of time in local communities talking to very small businesses. I've now managed to teach about 7,000 people in the last 18 months. That's still anecdotal evidence at the end of the day. So this is not a scientific study, this is observations. Number one, it is a myth that small businesses don't need business support. I don't consider that a question. It is a myth. They do. We do. Second, they need it pretty much on a regular, ongoing basis. The types of support they need are all over the place. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, and there's no remedy per se to the question. So it is not a simple process. And therefore, any attempts to help are doomed to be partial successes inherently. And I think recognizing that at the outset is actually both humbling but very useful. Also, local conditions vary tremendously. And boy, oh boy, do people in London not know that. And I don't mean people in London who happen to be from London, I mean people in London who happen to manage these things for the whole country. The further away you get from London, the further away London does indeed seem. I was in Hull on Monday, and I was talking to a very large group of young entrepreneurs and local entrepreneurs, and we were having a very engaging conversation, and they had to give me a bit of an education as to why Hull is absolutely not Leeds, and never will be, and how dare I consider Leeds to be close by. Turns out it's much further away culturally than it was geographically, so I made all sorts of faux pas, which is great. Newcastle was even further, as it turned out. And what was interesting, though, was what was furthest away was London. And the local conditions there, the local conditions in the city center of Hull as compared to some of the outlying suburban villages and townships are very different from each other. And what I did find, though, and what I continue to find, is that local businesses, first and foremost, are frequently invisible to local authorities. And local authorities are in large part invisible to local businesses. The points of contact are actually quite few. Much less, much to my surprise, than in corresponding towns, say in the United States. And I had always assumed it would be absolutely very much the opposite. My assumptions were wrong. Second, local businesses frequently don't know that there's probably somebody close by who can help. There is a profound lack of local business cohesion in local communities. And it's interesting because I'll gather up a group of local businesses when I run a School for Startup session, and most of the best advice doesn't come from me, it's from somebody else in the audience who knows about something. That's all. The person in the audience asks me a question, a local business owner, and says, I need this, I'm trying to do this, and somebody else in the audience says, well, why haven't you just gone there? Or how come you haven't talked to Joe or Sally? I'm Steve, as you can tell, I'm making some rather generic answers here. It's an observation that happens over and over and over again, and that is that the easiest way for local businesses to get support, and interestingly enough, the most effective way, is for local businesses to become more cohesive, to create effective peer groups amongst each other. In that sense of community, a local authority, a local council, can then become another voice within a community rather than being in opposition to or distant from. And that becomes a much different relationship. And there's a lot of opportunity in that. And a lot of what you're going to see today is about that, is about this question of how can areas that are essentially intimate local, cohesive, have an identity that's cultural, historical, or accidental, but have an identity. Find a way to be pulled together in a way that is both cost-effective and effective. I should say that in the other order. That is effective and cost-effective. Because the latter is not really interesting unless we achieve the former. And I spend so much of my time with small businesses asking questions that are answerable, but if they don't get the answer right, they frequently fail, or near fail. I mean, it's so easy for things to be fatal for a small business. You don't get a lot of margin error, you don't get a lot of help, and you think you're by yourself. And so most business owners view themselves as being a very solitary situation. And thus there is a very strong opportunity for pulling together of peers. One of the other things I'm very mindful of is that it's going to become incumbent on smaller, more tightly bound communities to take up a larger share of the load of finding ways to support businesses, because there is reason to believe that the nature of how these things are done may change over the next few months. Now, my crystal ball is as murky as yours, and I read the same newspapers you do, so I know about as much as you do about what's going to happen next. It's going to be anything, really. But I do know that it's going to have less money involved. That's one thing that's probably obvious. And therefore, and yet the needs of small businesses to grow and flourish, which essentially makes economies vibrant, which puts us in a position so we can have a growing tax base and thus offer services, hasn't unfortunately gone away. So from my point of view, the great opportunity is to find ways to have, I mean, I'm a big fan in local support and in local communities and local businesses working with each other. And I encourage it wherever I go. And historically, I did it informally in association with the University of Essex and the Navigator team. We decided quite some time ago now that there was a huge opportunity to empower that kind of activity. And I think I shall leave it there and let all the expertise to the guys. But thank you for inviting me this morning, and I hope you guys find it worthwhile.